Hey, what's going on YouTube? Gary here, gzduel, here to bring you guys the Thunder deck, the Thunder family deck, and I've been playing with this. I've been having a lot of fun with this deck, considering how cheap it is. If you take a look at the main deck, considering how cheap it is, I think I might want to try to make this in real life as well. So without further ado, I'm going to get into the deck profile. For monsters, we have 2 Effect Veiler, 1 Honest, 3 Mahunter, 3 Pahunter, 2 Sisunder, 2 Thunder King Ryo, 3 Thunder Seahorse, and 2 Violent Prism. For spells, we have Darkhold, 2 Forbidden Lands, Heavy Storm, Monster Reborn, 2 Mystical Space Typhoons, 2 Pot of Duality, and 2 Recycling Batteries. For traps, we have 2 Bottomless, 2 Compulsory Evacuation, 2 Mirror Force, Solemn Judgment, Solemn Warning, Starlight Road, and 2 Torrential Tributes. For the extra deck, we have 1 Crimson Blader, Scrap Dragon, Stardust Dragon, Thought Ruler Archfiend. Exceeds monsters, we have Abyss Dweller, Constellar Omega, Diamond Direwolf, Gaga Cowboy, Gemini Pearl, Mace Stroke, Shockmaster, Black Ship of Corn, 2 Photon Paladynamo, and 1 Vylon de Sigma. Vylon de Sigma is such a good card. For side deck, we have 3 Drone Lockbirds, since we're still in that Prophecy format. We have the 2 Kaikus, 2 Maxi, 2 Night Beam, 2 Eradicator Epidemic Virus, 2 Impure Iron Wall, and 2 Soul Drains. Okay, so the deck seems really straightforward. The basic thing is you go into rank 4 Exceeds, or maybe you go into a level 8 Synchro monster if you have Violent Prism, and you get to search your deck with basically the Thunder Seahorse, and you can use Sisunder to get back Thunder Seahorse, and you can like just keep going through your resources, recycling your resources. And if you go into Paladynamo, Photon Paladynamo, you get to draw a card once it gets destroyed by your opponent's card, and you have a lot of back row support for the deck. So the deck runs upon using Exceed monsters to solve problems that your opponent has, and then using Synchro monsters to get rid of, to be the beat stick. So really, when you go into a Synchro play, it's when you really want that monster to stay on the field. So you'll go into things like Scrap Dragon, so that if your opponent sets back row, you can pop the back row and then attack directly. You want to go into Stardust Dragon so it can prevent destruction. You even want to go into Thought Ruler Archfiend because it prevents its, you can pay 1,000 life points to prevent it from being targeted by an effect. You can negate the effect that targets this card. And Crimson Blader, you want to press the advantage when you're facing a deck like dragons. So yeah, when you want to go into a Synchro play, it's basically you want to keep that monster on the field. When you're going into an Exceed play, it's basically like you're trying to solve a problem. So if your opponent has a Draco Sack, instead of going into Paladynamo, instead of going into like Thought Ruler Archfiend and all that stuff, you would go into Photon Paladynamo with the 2 light monsters that you summon, and then you use Paladynamo's effect, negate the effect of Draco Sack, and attack directly, so that when Paladynamo dies, you get to draw a card anyways, so you don't really minus that much. So that's why you Exceed. You also Exceed sometimes to go into Diamond Direwolf to get rid of problem back row or face up a continuous spell or trap. You might want to go into Gemini Pearl just as a beat stick to beat over Ophion because you can't go into your Synchro plays. You might want to go into the Constellar Omega just so that if your opponent has a lot of back row, you can protect yourself. So the Exceed monsters are mainly there for problem solving, and the Synchro monsters are mainly there in order to be the tank that you're relying upon. And if you're not relying upon a tank in the extra deck, then you can also choose to rely on the tank that you have in the main deck. And of course, I'm talking about Thunder King, because if you have Thunder King and a lot of protective back row like Bottomless, like Mirror Force, like Compulsory Evacuation Device, you can actually win games like that because your opponent just simply can't get over Thunder King plus back row. Yeah, so if you have so that's how the deck plays. You want to be able to tank with monsters, and you want to be able to solve problems. So it's very versatile. But that also adds to the deck's, one of the deck's weaknesses. I find that the deck's weaknesses, the opening hand, the early game. What happens is sometimes you might open up with the perfect hand, like I do sometimes with Thunder King, and plus back row, and plus things that search, like Pot of Duality and Thunder Seahorse. So like first turn I'll go Thunder Seahorse, search for 2 Thunder monsters, and then Pot of Duality into something, and then normal summon Thunder King and set back row. That's like the perfect hand. but sometimes you don't open always like that. In early game, especially when you don't have a lot of resources to work with, what you end up drawing sometimes is too many monsters or too many spell traps. In the case where you have too many monsters, you have to hope that your opponent doesn't have a lot of back row. Now, if they have a lot of back row, then the monsters that you summon will get bottomless, compulse, and all that stuff, and you'll probably lose that game. But if you open up with a lot of back row, there's a chance that you can turn it around. As long as your opponent's deck isn't so fast that it'll overwhelm you, or as long as they don't draw into the broken cards like Heavy Storm and all of that stuff, then you have a chance of winning and stalling the game long enough so that you can draw into things like Thunder Seahorse to get your deck rolling. You can draw into things like Thunder King to pressure with them, and you can draw into things like Manhunter, Pahunter, Sisunder in order to go into Exceed plays or Synchro plays. But then that's provided that you draw into a lot of back row to support you. So the best hand you can draw with this deck is a balance of monsters and spell traps, but if you draw either one, you can still play out of it. Okay, other than that, I don't think there's a lot of things for me to explain. I want to explain this Thought Ruler Archfiend card. I really like Thought Ruler Archfiend. I was playing the Crazy Box in its place because Crazy Box is dark, it's a Eradicator Epidemic target, it's 3000 attack, but I don't feel like it has a lot of staying power. Sometimes you want Thought Ruler Archfiend just because it has 2700 attack that can attack, and when it attacks and destroys a monster by battle, you can gain life points equal to the monster's attack, and you can pay 1000 life points to negate things like Compulse on Thought Ruler. You can negate things like Dimension Prison on Thought Ruler. So it has a lot of staying power on the field as well. So that's why I chose to put Thought Ruler in, just because it's all of that, plus is a dark target for Eradicator Epidemic Virus if I need it. So yeah, that's all I really wanted to say about this deck. It runs very well. I think I'm going to pursue it in real life just because it's really cheap to make. Looking at the main deck, the Mahunters, Pahunters, Sisunders, those things are common. I already have Thunder King. I guess the most expensive cards would be in the extra deck like Paladynamo and stuff, but other than that, this should be a really straightforward build. So I hope you guys enjoyed this I can't speak. I hope you guys enjoyed this deck profile, and if you have any questions, feel free to drop it in the comment section down below. But other than that, this is Gary GZduels signing out.